So today we're going to be simplifying these rational expressions and also stating any restrictions. There's three questions that we'll do today. So for this first one, very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor both the numerator and denominator. Whenever we're simplifying rational expressions, that's always a big thing we want to do. That's usually a key because then we can see if there's any factors within the numerator and denominator that we may be able to cancel out. Okay, so let's start with reviewing how do we factor a quadratic? Well, we factor a quadratic by finding two numbers that both add up to the c value of the quadratic and multiply to the b value of the quadratic. So in this case, I need two numbers that multiply to 8 and add to 6. So what multiplies to 8? Well, 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Now, do either of those sets of numbers also add to 6? Well, 1 plus 8 would not be 6, but 2 plus 4 is 6. So therefore, 2 and 4 are our numbers. So x plus 2 times x plus 4 is what we're going to replace the numerator with. Now let's try for the denominator. How can we factor x squared plus 5x plus 4? Well, we need to find two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 5. And those numbers are 4 and 1, right? 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So we're going to have x plus 4 times x plus 1 like that. Now I'm going to cancel out the x plus 4's like that. And we're going to end up with x plus 2 over x plus 1 as our final answer. Now, it also said to state any restrictions, or some people call them exclusions as well. They're the same thing. And basically, they are which values of x can we not have? Which values of x would make this undefined? Now, a rational function is undefined when the denominator is 0. So in the final answer, we can see that in the final answer, x cannot equal to -1, otherwise the denominator would be 0. But the key is we want to look at all denominators, not just the final answer one. We also must consider this denominator here in the previous step, where we have x plus 4 times x plus 1. Even though the x plus 4's cancel, we still need to consider x equaling -4 as a restriction. X still can't equal to -4, even though technically it could in our final answer. It couldn't in our original expression, and we're always doing the original expression. And so there we go. Here's our final answer, and then x can't equal -1 or -4 would be the exclusions here, or restrictions. Okay, let's try another one. First things first here, we need to factor these quadratics. And I noticed that we can actually common factor both of them to make things easier on ourselves. So let's do that. I'm going to common factor an 8 out of the first one. Or sorry, a 4 out of the first one, sorry. To get 4x squared plus, let's see, 3x plus 2, like that. And then in the denominator, I will common factor out the 2. Like that. And now I noticed that I actually have the same thing in the numerator and the denominator, so it can just cancel out. The other thing, though, that I do want to account for, just because they did ask for restrictions, is whether or not we're able to factor this. So I actually am going to factor this further for that reason, because it'll be easier on me to find those restrictions. So I need two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 3. Those numbers are 2 and 1. So this is the same as x plus 2 times x plus 1. Like that. And then I'm going to cancel out what I can cancel out. I will cancel out the x plus 2's and the x plus 1's. And then 4 over 2 is just 2. And so our final answer is 2. But with the restriction that x cannot equal 2 and x cannot equal to -1, because even though, or sorry, -2, I think I said 2, I meant -2. X cannot equal to -2 or to -1, because even though our final answer is just 2, if we were to plug in -2 or -1 back into the original value, or really any step before this step, in fact, we would end up getting something undefined instead of 2, but any other value for x will give us 2 as our final answer. Okay, let's move on to the third and final one today. For this numerator, we need to find two numbers that add to -2 and multiply to -3. Well, the only things that could possibly multiply to -3 are 1 and -3, or -1 and +3. And clearly it's going to be -3 and +1 to give us -2. So x minus 3 times x plus 1, like that. Go. Okay, and then for our denominator, we need to figure out two numbers that multiply to 6 but add to -5. So those are going to be -2 and -3. So x minus 3 and x minus 2. Then I can cancel those. And my final answer is x plus 1 over x minus 2. And let's state our restrictions. Well, x cannot be 2, but also x cannot be 3 as well, even though we did cancel that out. Same thing as before. We do still have to account for the fact that x minus 3 was a factor in a denominator at one point here. All right, well, that's it for today. Please feel free to leave any questions you have in the comment section, and we'll see you for the next one.